Attention business owners. Reach over 100,000 martial artists a month by advertising with World Martial Arts Media. We can put your product, service, or event announcements in front of your target audience. Advertise with World Martial Arts Magazine, World Martial Arts Radio, World Martial Arts TV, or all three media sources for the biggest bang for your advertising buck. Visit www.worldmartialartsmedia.com and click on the advertising link to see just how amazingly affordable it can be.
Hey Alex, how are you?
I'm really good, man. I'm glad you called. I wanted to do this show with you, man, because I had a strong desire to know, what your trip to China was like.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've gone, 8 times now, right? Because it's like every 2 years. So.
Wait, you said you went 8 times?
Well, yeah, I go every 2 years. I've been going since 2004.
Oh, wow. What's that?
So I
like
got 2004, 6, 8, 10. I went twice, one time because I won 12, and then I did 13 because of I did a back-to-back one because we were raising a plaque. Then we did 14, and now the next one's coming up in 2016. You're coming with us.
Wait, did you say me?
Yeah, you got to come.
Oh, wow, I'd love to go. That would be great.
Don't you want to train in the Shaolin Temple, man? Come on.
Oh, definitely. Well, I'd love to train with you first.
Yeah, I mean, it's open, anybody can go who wants to go. You don't have to be a Wing Chun person to go. I mean, we get people that go on that tour who do, completely other different systems. You probably would feel more at home because, we're talking about all the people in our association that can go on the trip, and they probably all do Wing Chun, yeah. But, it's open to you if you want to go and you have the time away from work because it is, 14 to 20 days,
Oh, definitely. I would love to go and hang out with you guys over there.
Yeah, so on Grandmaster Chung's website, which is www.chungswingchun, CHEUNGS, wingchun.com, chungswingchun.com. You'll always see a tab for China Tour.
Okay.
They just finished one. They just finished like a training run. It was just a few weeks. It's not the big one. The big one is usually every 2 years. So they'll probably, as soon as I think they just got back, probably in less than a week, they'll already start planning for the next one. So if you keep your eyes open and visit that site, you'll see it.
That'd be great. I'd love to also go with some of my friends in the martial arts community here. They can all go.
Oh, absolutely. You can bring everybody. Yeah, the more the merrier. But it generally runs between 3,300 and 3,500, and that pays for all of your transportation in China because we fly, we get on the super train because we go all over the place. And that also pays for all of your meals, all of your hotel. What it doesn't cover is your round-trip plane ticket. So, it's easily a $4,000 trip if you've never gone to China before.
Wow.
So it is an investment.
Wow, I can't wait. I'm excited now.
Yeah. So, we do a lot, and of course, we spend at least 3 or 4 days out of that trip just at the Shaolin Temple doing things with the monks and all that kind of stuff. And then the rest, we're on mountains climbing. We train every day. There's always a morning training, and an afternoon training, and sometimes a morning, afternoon, and an evening training. But in between all of that, we're also going to all the sites and seeing all the stuff, terracotta soldiers, and, it's amazing.
Wow. We're gonna
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you. We're gonna
I
have to
got you
talk.
on speaker.
We're gonna have to talk more about that, man, because I'm really, really interested. You got me
Okay.
excited. And what's it like over there, the atmosphere when you get there?
Oh man, I cannot wait. I love, now this is me, but I love China so much, mainland China, right? Hong Kong is like going to, the Asian version of New York City. But China, mainland China, is where you see the ancient culture, and that type of thing. So I love going to mainland China. I can never wait to go back.
It seems
And
like
it's so big and so vast that you never can experience it all in just one trip.
in the pictures I see you with William Chung a lot there. It seems like you guys are really, really good friends, as well as master and student.
Who, you talking about Sifu and I? Of course, he's like my dad.
Wow.
And I mean that in the positive and the negative way, because Dad can whip up on you when you get out of line.
Yeah. And does
He
go with
gets
you?
Of course, yeah. It's his tour. It's his tour. He's the focal point of the tour. He leads all the training. So he gives us techniques to work on and stuff in the day. Remember, because this is our opportunity to actually work directly with Sifu. If you don't get to see him, but a couple times a year, this is how, this is what I've been doing. This is what I was telling you in the magazine interview, is that the awesome part of these tours, and I've been doing it every 2 years specifically because it's 21 days of training, all day with my Sifu, where I don't have access to him like that, and now he's getting older, so, I got to grab every moment I can.
How many masters go to this thing?
Oh, it's a lot. So the cool thing is there might be 75 to 100 people on this tour. And out of that 75 to 100 people, I'd say maybe it could be roughly 25 to 30 masters go. Right? So, but, it's not just the masters. I mean, you got some talented students out there. You got practitioners out there that are very athletic and on their way up and going through the system and coming from other arts and stuff like that. So you just have a bunch of talented people. And the great thing about it is a bunch of talented people from all over the world. I mean, this is the biggest reason, or one of the biggest reasons why I'm so connected to this trip, is because I get to see people that for no other reason that we both train a similar martial art, that we can see each other. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be talking to people in the Ukraine or Serbia or Russia or Macedonia or different parts of the islands, even parts of the United States that I may not get to see because of this one thing we all have in common. We get together and we have a great time, and it's just great to have an exchange of culture and and realize that we're all human beings, even though we might have different politics and different belief systems and stuff like that. That commonality of the human experience is what's so great about it. So we all get together and we go to the restaurant together. It's crazy because it's so funny that I always lose 20 pounds. Every trip I lose 20 pounds when I get down there because, there's no processed food. Everything's fresh. It's the way everything's prepared, and there's not junk that we have like in the United States. And so all the walking and constantly, I always thought that I would put on weight because they eat all time. It's like every 2 or 3 hours we're at the restaurant eating, right? Uh-huh. But the thing about it is you combine that with the walks and the climbing every temple in sight and the Great Wall of China and then all the training and I guess it all works itself out. It's the good non-processed food along with consistent movement just is amazing. And plus it's hot. Now we used to go down in the May period, but that is like the worst time to go. It might be the cheapest time to go, but it's the worst time to go in the sense of the weather because it's so hot. So we moved it to October, and the cool thing about that is Grandmaster's birthday is October 11th, or 10th or 11th. 10th? Yeah, it's October 10th. So we also have a great birthday party for Sifu when we're down there, It's, so it's very celebratory and, but immersing yourself in culture, when you get to see some of the artwork that they do in China, is crazy because, a lot of times it's not just the end product, it's how they arrived at it. For example, there's like these, how you see those little bottles that you put the ships inside of?
Yeah.
People used to, they would take out the bottom and they would put the model ship in it and then glue the bottom back on.
Yeah.
Well, what they would do is they'll take something maybe just a little bit, half the size of that bottle, like a little pill bottle. They'll take a paintbrush, turn it upside down, and paint upside down and backwards, and have like perfect, a perfect design of a tiger or a dragon or something like that. And it's the most amazing thing because it's so complex. They'll have these paintings that are actually all thread. It's woven, and it looks like a Rembrandt painting that was done with oil, and it's done with threads, just threading different colors and shades, and having, it's amazing stuff that they do down there. With the jade, I saw this jade ship. We were at the jade factory where they show you how all the different colors of jade and how they process the jade in order to make all the statues and jewelry. And there was this, it was like 20, maybe 15-foot ship that was at least 6.5 feet high, and maybe about 15, 20 feet long. It took 18 years to make. It's all jade. Alex, what the heck is the point?
Wow.
If you buy that, I'm like, how much does this cost, right? But it's just amazing. It's just amazing that around every corner there's something, creative and interesting. And then, of course, then there's the standard stuff, the tourist stuff, Tiananmen Square, and the Forbidden City. And what attracts you to those is going back in time. I mean, you're looking at architecture, and stuff that's thousands of years old, and you're just amazed. It's just so beautiful. And then the other piece is, experiencing the culture of the people, the basic people. One time this lady invited us into her house. This is the tour group, right? She invited us into her house in this old city. So you got to see the way the adobe and the way the buildings were made, the houses were made. It looked like something out of an old Chinese kung fu movie. And her husband happened to be an artist, and we sat down in her living room in the circle, and she talked about her family and her generations, and she's an everyday person. And so that's the kind of stuff that, really got me. I love going to the Forbidden City and seeing how the emperor lives. But I want to see how the regular people live too. Yeah. And what they did for a living and how they earned their keep, and and transportation and going to the market, and then markets. Oh my God. The markets in China, there's a market everywhere. People got fresh fruit. They got, oranges or grapefruits the size of pumpkins, and then they've got fruit that you probably never see, unless you go to a specialty shop. It looks like some genetic hybrid or something going wrong with radiation poisoning. You're like, wait a minute, I'm not eating that. But it's just amazing. So it's, if you've never experienced that culture in China, because, Chinese food in China is not the same as Chinese food in America or Canada or Philly, from where you Pennsylvania. You're Philly, right?
Yeah, close to it.
Yeah. So, you got Chinese restaurants down there, and, but what you usually have to do is go in and ask for the Chinese menu. There's two menus in real Chinese restaurants, right? And you got the Guaylo menu, and then you got the Chinese menu. See, Alex, they haven't been telling you the whole story, right? You go into a Chinese restaurant, not a carryout, but a Chinese restaurant, and sit down. And when you order food, they're going to bring you that menu that has English on it. Right? That's the one they give to all the Westerners, right? The gualos. But you want the Chinese menu. You say, no, you say, boo. I want the actual Chinese menu, and then you get all the good food. But the reason is because, we like our monosodium glutamate, and, we like it to taste the same way. Yeah. So, you got to definitely, that's another thing. You definitely got to be careful what you eat, because you're not going to like everything in China, And you got to be careful. You got to have your shots and all that stuff, because the bacteria over there is obviously not the same as over here. They're used to it. We're not. So it's easy to get sick over there, and that's just a waste. Wow. If you get over there and then you get sick. But it's just so much stuff to do, and so much, and it's just so culture rich. From the lowest to the highest. It's not like there's always something great. I love walking out from the hotel, and there's a market, and it's 10 o'clock at night, and they got the night lights up, and it's just a market, an outside, open-air market. And people got fresh fruit, and, they got, crazy things. You don't know what kind, it might be an eel or something. Well, eel is pretty tame, actually. There's something crazy hanging, and you got to ask, what is that exactly? 'Cause, yeah, we were, one time we were coming from, I don't know, we were on like this little boat ride or something, and we were walking down the street, and this guy had to stand up, and he had all kinds of dried pork and all this kind of stuff. And Grandmaster stopped, and he wanted to get some food because he saw something that he hadn't had since he was a little boy. And this guy had it, and it was like, 50 years after the fact. He was like, I didn't even think people sold this anymore. And it was, you talk about Chinese soul food, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the knuckle of the knuckle. And he was tearing it up, and I was like, oh. And we were on this cruise, and he had gotten all this food from this little stand that's this, you really got to be part of that neighborhood to like that food. Like, I'm from Detroit, right? Mm-hmm. And so I grew up with people doing the barbecue and the chitlins, right? Uh-huh. If you hadn't had chitlins before, that can be a daunting affair. The smell alone, if it's not clean right?
Uh-huh.
I remember saying, I'm not going to eat pig intestines. I'm sorry. You can't. I remember being 8 years old in Detroit, and my buddy's mom was, cooking up a storm, and I said, oh, that's foul. What is that? And he said, oh, that's chitlins. Chitlins are good. I'm like, what is it? He's like, oh, it's the pig intestine. I'm like, no, I'm not eating that. They're like, no, just put some hot sauce on it. It tastes like noodles. I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, that's what Graham was trying to do. We were on the cruise. We were on the boat, and he had blocked off the entire hallway, so people had to get to their cabins. He wouldn't let people go by if they didn't try some of his food. We're talking about complete strangers that are, because we were all sitting in there, we were just relaxing, and we filled up the hallway of the boat. Like, think of a boat, and you got the cabins, right, on both sides. We're just kind of sitting in the hallway, 20 of us, and we're tasting. We're tasting these little delicacies, as he called them. And I was like, no, Sifu, I'll pass on that. He's like, well, no problem, more for me. And I'm like, yeah, you can have it all, because that's nasty. So, there's definitely some acquired taste in different foods in China. But, that's another thing, Alex. It's like, they can be creative on every level. So the presentation sometimes on food, like, I wasn't a eggplant person. There was 18 years where Grandmaster was just a vegetarian. But I'm telling you, he used to feed me some of his vegetarian food, like some eggplant, and it tastes like fish. It tastes like, shark or a meat. And it wasn't a meat. It was a plant, and he proved it. I was like, oh, my goodness. I said, this is good. I think I might be able to be a vegetarian. No. Maybe not quite. Maybe off and on. But it's just amazing from the food to the art. It's amazing. You're going to a temple, and, it's maybe you're getting up early. You see all the people out at the park. You see the seniors training the Tai Chi, and they're training the Tai Chi sword, and there's like 20 or 30 of them up there, and they're about 70, 80 years old, and they're up all doing the Tai Chi at the same time, like clockwork. Wow. And these are just people off the street, and there's people having hacky sack contests that look like Kung Fu, right? They have this little hacky sack. You know what a hacky sack is, Alex?
Not really. I'm not familiar with it.
have you ever seen that game that people play? It's like a bean bag that you can only kick it, and you kick it up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like you would do the same thing with a soccer ball, but it's this little bean bag.
I see, okay.
But they put like feathers on the end of it, so it like flies up like a badminton, thing, and do all kinds of crazy stuff. They just got all this kind of neat, unique kind of stuff that they do. And nighttime, they love karaoke. The thing is they, we got to work on their singing skills a little bit, because I still haven't come across any really great singers.
Is it true they get upset if someone else tries to sing karaoke, like from the States or something?
No. They love, if they see Americans in there, at least my experience has been, they want the Americans to get up and sing, because they want to either laugh you out of existence, but they don't. They take karaoke so seriously, so you could be really bad, and they will applaud you. I've seen that happen. And some people, you want to tell them, no, karaoke isn't for you. You're not supposed to be, karaoke is for everybody, right? You're not supposed to be, Luther Vandross singing karaoke.
Well, we can sing Jesus Santiago down there.
Yeah, there you go, right? But the thing is some people are worse than bad. and, they are really hurting your ears, especially if they have a little too much to drink. We were at this one place. I remember I went into a nightclub in China, and we obviously stuck out like a sore thumb. Of course, it didn't hurt that Sifu Don Shootin' and Sifu Maza had on these shirts that said Street Fighter on them. I'm like, why are you wearing that? Where's that cloud? Why are you advertising, your martial art? They got Street Fighter on the thing. I'm laughing. I'm like, stay on the other side of the room. I'm not trying to get in any fights. Remember, we're outnumbered, right? Yeah. It's 4 billion to a handful of people here. So I remember we went into one club, and I didn't get maybe 3 feet into the club where this group of kids, they had to be in their 20s, their early 20s, grabbed me and demanded that I drink with them, right? And they were just, they were just knocking them back. I'm in the middle of, they're just knocking them back one after another. But they were very, very friendly. And I don't know, Alex, have you ever been on a dance floor that's a springboard?
No.
We were at this club, and I'm sitting there. I'm trying to hit some moves because Sifu Mo can dance now, right? And the floor is bouncing, and I'm like, okay, I know I don't weigh that much, right? But they have this springboard because I guess if you don't dance incredibly well, right, you just want to jump up and down, right? So that's another thing, I wouldn't see in the United States that I've been across. It's a flexible dance floor. I wanted to do judo throws on that floor. I said this would be good for training, because good break fall. But it's just stuff like that. So it's been very interesting. Going to the Shaolin Temple is amazing. Yeah. The temple you can feel, now, the Northern Shaolin Temple, which is the one you see in the movies, because there's actually like 7 temples. There's north, south, and then there's a whole bunch of, let's say, subsidiary temples of the Shaolin Temple. It's a major corporation. There are 60,000 employees in the Shaolin Temple. Those monks are employees. Do you understand? Yeah, well, no, I don't know if they don't. I don't think they don't get paid for their job because they're Buddhist monks, but they work for the abbot.
I see.
You see, so the way they get paid is they get room and board and education and that kind of thing. They get, they don't have to my knowledge, they don't have like personal bank accounts. Because these are monks, right? We're not talking about secular monks.
No TVs or Xboxes in their room.
Yeah. Now the funny thing is I do happen to know that the head abbot has a Hummer.
Oh, okay.
And I saw him in the Hummer. This was years ago. I saw a picture of him in the Hummer. I was like, what is going on? We were, in fact, Inside Kung Fu, or was it Inside Kung Fu, a Black Belt magazine? I have it here, actually, where they did an article on our first trip to China. And, they talked about it. It was so funny because there was a moment where we were training with the monks the whole week, and we were kind of like, talking amongst ourselves. And I look over, and I see one monk sitting down, and he's got a laptop, and another monk standing up, and he's on a cellular phone. Oh. Now, of course, who says that they can't have technology? Of course they have technology. But but the feeling of it was odd because, we're training in the Shaolin Temple. We're in the Pagoda Forest. It's like 1,800 years old, They're wearing the outfits that you feel like you're back in time. So for someone, all of a sudden you hear the Motorola ringtone or something, and then you hear a monk, talking on it. Boo me wow, like what? What's going on? It just seems like a contrast. You don't expect to see that.
So there goes all your 36 chamber fantasies there.
Exactly. You hit it right at that, Alex. That's exactly. You're thinking about your, you're going back. You're thinking about every movie you saw Gordon Liu in, and you just have that feeling. You can't help it. And I'm sure the monks are laughing at us, and we don't realize it because they're like, no, dude, it's 2015. Okay, we got a phone. We're not living. I know this is in the mountains, but there are some things that we have. We have running water. There's a toilet. We don't have to go to the well.
Yeah.
So now the first, I have to tell you, Shaolin Temple has changed because the first time I went in 2004, there was dirt roads to the temple. I mean, there was they were rebuilding stuff, so it looked kind of like Beirut. There were buildings being torn down. The hotel we were staying at was actually owned by the Shaolin Temple. It was called the Shaolin Temple International Hotel, and it was 3 miles from the temple. So on the way, we'd wake up early in the morning. We'd go have breakfast. We'd leave out maybe about 5:30 to head to the temple, which was like 3 miles away from the hotel. And the coolest thing is you see all the wushu schools, just one after another, all the way to Shaolin. It's like a progression of wushu schools. And so I have video footage, where you look to the left and you see like 1,000 guys out training with the red uniform on one side. You look over to the other side of the tour bus, and you see another 1,000 guys from a different wushu school, and they're wearing all blue, right? And they're all doing exercises at the crack of dawn, training their kung fu. Wow. I mean, that first year I went in, it seemed like they never stopped, but of course they do. They're educated there, because we're talking about 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, teenagers and up, right? They start young, and we're heading to it. We stayed all day at the Shaolin Temple. It had to have been like 7:30, 8 o'clock. It was getting dark. I swear to you, we're leaving, and there they are, still out there, training their forms in sequence. I said, now either somebody called the school and said, look, the Gualos are coming. Make it look like we train all day. And while we were at the temple, they're watching TV and doing nothing. But then, of course, when we come back, they act like they're training again. I have a suspicion that they got a schedule, and they just train a lot. And, and this is one of the things I try to tell to my students I said, you set a standard for yourself that might be unrealistic, because if you want the skill level at a young age of that of like maybe a Shaolin monk or a great high-level wushu champion, I said, you got to understand, they started at 5, and they practice 6 to 8 hours a day until they're, 15, 16, 17, 18. You're coming in twice a week for an hour or two. You're not going to get the same results in the same period of time. You can't be a weekend warrior and expecting, master level skill, dude. You gotta put the work in.
That's right. That's right.
So, anyways, it's so every day seeing what they go through, and let me tell you, my students, I'm known for putting pressure. I believe in that. I was raised that way. I believe that you have to be able to handle mental and physical pressure, right? Within reason, it's appropriate. So I press my students to go to get to the next level. But, some of the wushu training I would see next door and how the discipline is, we couldn't pull that off in the United States. There would be Child Protective Services would be coming out, people would be getting in fist fights. We're very soft in comparison to traditional training. Not everybody, but as a generally, you just, it's not the same thing, because of course it's not the same thing. Those kids are not paying, their parents are not paying the school a monthly fee to learn a martial art. They drop those kids off and they're enrolling in that wushu school, and it's like, I can't, this is a way to raise my child, to get him educated and teach him a skill. And then when he turns a certain age, he can decide whether he wants to go into the secular world or stay doing this or become an athlete or whatever. So, they're not paying, the school, the school is taking care of their child for them. It's a lot different than the way we do things. So, but I noticed they're very hard on them, very hard on them. I've seen those kids being beat with sticks, and I know that, in the United States, where a lot of people wouldn't tolerate that type of training.
Right.
But I have to tell you, they get it. Pain is the best teacher, but nobody wants to go to his class. That's a Japanese proverb.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is we can all figure out appropriate ways to put pressure on people without hurting them. But people got to understand there's levels of hurt. Like I think that getting hurt, like a bruise, like your bell rung a little bit. I mean, that should be understanding that if you're in a combat training martial art, that is part of the game.
Yeah.
But if you're getting injured, dislocated shoulder, broken arms, broken legs, that's negligence.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
That should not be happening. But the whole experience in China that first year was crazy because the Shaolin Temple was different. You had more access. There were less tourists. So I really felt like I was going back in time. I mean, Alex, think about it. We grew up watching action theater, those kung fu movies and stuff like that. Yeah, I was sitting there. There was a movie that Jet Li did that actually saved the Shaolin Temple called Shaolin Temple. Mm-hmm. And have you ever? Yeah, are you familiar with that movie?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was Jet Li. What was he, like 16 or something? He was a wushu champion. Yeah, he was either 15 or 16. He wasn't in his 20s. I know that. He was a teenager, but he was a wushu champion. And the revenue, the popularity for that movie, single-handedly almost saved the Shaolin Temple. It was in ruins. Everything was run down. The revenue created from that generated interest back into it, and they started to renovate it. Now it is a huge, mega thing. I mean, it's not just the temple and the Buddhist monks. I mean, it's shows like Broadway. I mean, it's demonstrations. It's events. When I first went down there was little or none of that. There weren't even street lights, traffic lights. There would be four-way traffic, and everybody somehow figured out how to take turns and not crash into each other. L.A., that wouldn't go. Atlanta, that wouldn't go. D.C., that wouldn't go. But in China, somehow they would have four-way traffic with mopeds, cars, and bikes, and nobody's killing each other. But now in Dangfeng, which is where Shaolin Temple is, there are roads now. There's like a metropolis city starting to be built, and it's good and it's bad. The great part of being at Shaolin when I was down there was I got to experience the old Shaolin, more of the old Shaolin. I didn't mind seeing some of the temples and ruins and stuff like that. Kind of added to the mystique. But I got to see more of the monks training and natural. I mean, now they have a separate facility in Shaolin away from everybody because there's just so many tourists that go and pay admission to go into the temple or into, Shaolin, which is more than just going into the main temple or the 12 chambers and all that. There's a whole bunch of different things. It's a whole thing within itself. I mean, there's Damo's Cave that you can climb the mountain to get to Damo's Cave, and There's all kinds of pathways and roads and different temple, different things to look at and stuff like that, other than just that one spot where you go in that you see in the movies. Wow. But it's amazing, and I remember that first trip. It was so peaceful. I mean, when you would go into the temple and you'd hear the monks chanting "Ami Tofu, Ami Tofu," and then you'd hear that they were hitting the thing. It was just like you saw in the movies, and there was a feeling. It was a very peaceful feeling, and then to experience the monks doing their martial arts. They have, what I noticed, it was like two strains of of monk. You had prayer monks who did a kung fu, but it was more exercise and cleansing. And then you had the warrior monks who had a higher level of energy, who were very enthusiastic, to say the least, and did more sanda,
That's what I was going to ask you about. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, that's a misconception. Those monks don't play there, but, there's a lot of imposter monks in and out. People from the wushu schools that are being trained from a descendant of Shaolin, and, they're not real monks. And when I say real monks, they're not, devoted to Buddhism in the temple, doing everything that they do. They're wushu guys who are from a wushu school who put on a monk's outfit, shave their head, and of course, if you don't know any better, you would say, yeah, I guess that's a Shaolin monk. But when you meet a real Shaolin monk, especially like a real warrior Shaolin monk, he's peaceful, but you know what it is, Alex. Game knows game. Game knows game, and I have a serious discernment. I never judge a book by its cover. Because I surprise people on a regular basis. But when I touch hands with a person who has trained seriously and has a high level skill, I can feel it. I can sense it. I can feel it. It's not me saying, "Oh, he looks like he can do something," because I don't know how many people look like they can do something and they end up being garbage. Yeah. You see that all the time. That infuriates me. Yeah. But some of these monks, even the ones that don't look like they're doing much of anything. These guys' athletic ability, to give you an idea, is think of our best Olympic athletes. Think of all the technology that they have access to, the machines, the weight resistance, the cardio stuff, all the gadgets we have and that we use to become super athletes, to have great speed and great cardio and all this. They're doing all that with none of that stuff. They're doing that with trees and concrete and bricks and running up the mountain. They can make our best CrossFit person look stupid. I'm talking about the serious ones. I'm not talking about all of them. I'm talking about the fighters. I'm talking about the guys who train their kung fu to a high level. They are like our highest level athlete, and they're doing it with just their surroundings.
Wow.
You know what I mean? We got focus mitts and all that kind of stuff and all kinds of extra technology and little electrodes you can put on your body to calculate your range of movement. The monks ain't using none of that stuff. The serious monks are just training over and hard, very disciplined, a very specific method for a long time, and they are excellent. Because, I don't just take your word for anything. I'm not that guy, Alex, right? I didn't follow Grandmaster Wing Chun because I thought he looked good or just because he taught Bruce Lee. I'm from the Show Me State. I'm from Detroit. Uh-huh. You can't put me in a trance because you happen to be real popular. You know what I'm saying? I give respect. I give respect to everybody, but the thing is if you give me something, I'm going to test it. I'm going to pressure test it. I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to try to look at it 360 degrees. If it's bull crap, or if it's just something that you can do because you have one specific gift, and the average person who tries to train it is not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to just take it as gospel. I'm that guy. So when I went to the Shaolin Temple, I wanted to know, if the fighting monks were fighting monks.
Yeah.
Right? And they are fighting monks. They are. These are real athletes, just like you and I. Just like in your school, you got real fighters, and those fighters train hard. They're doing the same thing. They're not sitting around praying all day.
Wow.
I'm telling you, people, they get the wrong opinion. You don't want to mess. Some of these, remember, these are all human beings, and everybody is not the holy monk on the Temple Mount. Some of these guys will knock you out. Just for if you don't want to, you could offend a Shaolin monk, and the Buddhist approach might be to let you slide, but the gangster monk will knock you out. And trust me, they got a few. So it's just better to show courtesy and respect to all people until they give you a reason not to.
Yeah.
And I have had nothing but a positive experience with the Shaolin Temple and the monks and meeting the head abbot, Shi Yongxin. I got a certificate of attachment to the Shaolin Temple, a lifetime certificate of attachment. They said, "You're my brother now, right? You may not be a Buddhist monk with me, but, you came, you experienced us, you guys keep coming back." I don't know of any other organization outside of other Shaolin or Japanese Zen organizations that, and I'm sure there are, but I'm just not aware of any, that are doing what we've been doing, which is going back to the Shaolin Temple over and over and over again consistently. And the head abbot pointed this out a couple years ago on Grandmaster's birthday. He said, "Look, I've met with all of the modern day, legitimate Wing Chun masters. People from lines that everybody knows that are considered, this or that." And he said, "Look, it's not about better or not better. It's about this man, William Chung Che-King, right? All I know is that I've seen him. I don't know of any other martial artist. He doesn't know of any other martial artist that's come to visit him that has traveled so extensively for such a long period, spreading Chinese culture and the art of Kung Fu to so many people so consistently." I mean, we got to understand that Grandmaster has been doing seminars and workshops all over the world since the 70s, since 79. It is now the year 2015, and he's still doing world tours and things like that. I mean, he's starting to slow down now, but he would be away from his family for 300 days out of the year or more. So, and he did that consistently, Wow. So it's not that, the abbot has met with, the Samuel Kwok's of the world, who I have a high level of respect for. I have a high level of respect for all legitimate, Kung Fu practitioners, be it Wing Chun or not Wing Chun. I've heard, I had to take this moment because I was listening to one of your other interviews, and I'm not going to say who this person's name is. I just hate when people have something to say about an organization based on one or two experiences they've had or some experience they've had online, especially when you're talking about, we got like 3,000 members plus, and so, I get it when you have a bad experience, but sometimes, or you just don't, somebody rubs you the wrong way, or they're always debating with you, that's one thing. But I just don't, I think as a community, especially in the Wing Chun community, we all are one family. In Hung Gar, they call it Yup right? One family, and we are. If we trace our roots, everybody's connected. You follow what I'm saying? Just like we are as human beings with all our different nationalities and our belief systems. I mean, we can all go back to Africa. Trust me, right? Whether you want to admit it or not, right? But the point is that it's the same way in Kung Fu, and especially in Wing Chun. And it really irks me when I hear the same arguments. When I hear the Eamon Bostepi thing and Grandmaster Chung, and I hear, I do traditional Wing Chun and I do this Wing Chun, and people are just they're missing the point. It's good to be diverse. You can't claim one thing as this is authentic and this is not authentic. I mean, Wing Chun is 300 years before Yip Man. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm from the Yip Man line, and I'm sitting here telling you that I realize that Yip Man didn't create Wing Chun. So we can't, although we can respect and appreciate his contribution and his students like Grandmaster and Wong Song Long and Grandmaster William Chung and all these other people that have come down the line. But guess what? There's Gulo Wing Chun. There's there's Wang Chun. The Southern White Crane. Fukian White Wing Chun. There's all these different things, and guess what? It's all Wing Chun, right? And we're all family. And we do ourselves a very serious disservice when we entertain folks or individuals that just want to keep arguing, just want to keeping us separated.
That's true.
Divided. We don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on an approach to something, but we're still family. Family, we argue, right? Brothers and sisters argue all the time, but at the end of the day, we are family.
That's right.
I don't go to sleep hating my brother. I might smack him upside the head early in the day, but by the time the day's over, I'm like, hey man, I love you, right? And so it really turns me off when people say that. I don't care if they like me, but they don't like someone else. My thing is, we all have got to figure out how to get along.
That's right.
And I think, I think the best way to further your expression of Wing Chun is to be the best example of it that you can be. And it doesn't matter what example someone else is doing, because greatness is greatness.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Good is good. You can do a completely so-called bogus Wing Chun style if you're whooping everybody's ass, excuse my French, right? You're whooping everybody's butt. All I care about is the function, the results.
That's right.
I don't care about where, it came from this person and that. I'm not concerned about that. I don't need to argue lineage. I don't need to argue, the stuff that doesn't matter, because the founders of Wing Chun, this is my opinion, the founders of Wing Chun, based on my experience and based on my research, because I've never closed my mind off to any other Wing Chun expression, right? And I'm a traditional Wing Chun. I love what Grandmaster William Chung does. I love that expression. I love that line. But that doesn't mean I block my mind off to everybody else. Understanding the other parts of my family makes my Kung Fu better. Even if it's me just realizing of something I absolutely would never do. I don't just not do it because, my Sifu said, don't do that. Or this person says, oh, we don't do that. We pray with our our pinkies pointing towards Jupiter. They pray with their pinkies pointing towards Mars. Who cares? You understand what I'm saying? That's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is this is a principle-based art. And Alex, you always hear me talk about this, right? And I'm sure you hear other Wing Chun people talk about it. And if it's not put in the right context, it's just a bunch of blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Like, oh, yeah, principles. So what? Everybody's got principles, right?
Yeah.
But what with Wing Chun, the idea is not to stylize it, and yet it's still being stylized. A person's expression becomes a stylization. They want to express, it's a brand. And so that brand, traditional Wing Chun, is a brand, right? We got specific things we do. That is the brand. But, that doesn't mean other Wing Chuns don't do the same thing, right? But if you're trying to differentiate yourself, you're trying to get your expression out, you tend to focus on what is the difference between what I'm doing and what that person's doing, right? And then a lot of times people get caught up in, all this other stuff. It's not important. In this day and age, it doesn't matter. All I care about is function. You can't lie about function. It either works or it doesn't work. You follow what I'm saying? And that's why you test everything. And I've tested everything that I do, right? There isn't anybody on this planet. Well, I shouldn't say that. I take that back. Let me reel that ego back in a little bit. I almost just, made my own number one pet peeve. I'm sure there's someone on this planet, right? But my point is that, you know, I never have to debate what I do. You know what I'm saying? Because in it by itself is it's undeniable. It's the martial artist. It's the individual and their ability to execute that expression that makes all the difference. You know what I'm saying, Alex? Yes, you can have you can do Philly style boxing, you can do, you know, Crump Gym style boxing, you can do, you know, all kinds of different styles of boxing, and, you know, each one has positives and negatives, right? But it's ultimately that fighter and his ability to express it against a contrasting style that makes all the difference in the world. It doesn't necessarily speak to the effectiveness of that style in itself. You know, I hear a lot of people, you know, and this is how I push that dynamic Wing Chun. Dynamic Wing Chun training. It's a supplement to the way you train what you do, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, there's no way you can argue with me the undeniability of the principles of Wing Chun. Because guess what? Right? And I'll put this out there. I challenge anybody to argue that point with me that, you know, that has a brain in their head. Because, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Yeah. That's right.
You follow what I'm saying? A 45-degree angle is a superior angle. But that's a separate thing from a person's ability to become those ideas. Do you understand what I mean? That's why you got plenty of Wing Chun people who are doing a very effective martial art, but they suck to all high heaven, right? They couldn't fight to save their lives, right? You know how many times I cringe when I see somebody who says they're a Wing Chun person, you know, on YouTube or something, and they're chasing somebody with those damn rolling punches, right? They're just waiting to be hooked. Right? I'm a boxer. I came from boxing. I would love for you to rush me with some chain punches. Or put your butt to sleep. Right? You know what I'm saying? And see, some people don't realize that that's not how you're supposed to do chain punches. You're not supposed to. See, people associate that technique with Wing Chun. So if you don't chase people with the rolling punches, people automatically assume, well, he's not doing Wing Chun. No, that's a beginner technique that's supposed to be used for several reasons. For the beginner who doesn't have a lot of power in single moves, this is a rapid succession so they can, force multiply their force real quick, one punch after another, right? Like a battering ram on a castle door, right? It keeps hitting that same spot. But the usage of it is actually supposed to be when the opponent can't get away, not when he can dance away and back up. It's like you got him pinned up against the wall, or you've swept him and he's on the ground and you're coming down and you get him down. It's not, if he can move away, you don't chase somebody with rolling punches. Yeah. And then on top of it, half these knuckleheads are doing disco moves, right? You're going to see, Alex will get this. Alex, you know when you get on the speed bag, right?
Yeah.
And you know how when you start doing a real fist, how you roll your wrist?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So imagine that, but with Wing Chun punches. So the people are throwing the punches. They throw it, and then they do this circle thing. And the faster they try to go, the more it turns into a circle when it's supposed to be a straight arrow. It's supposed to be a straight arrow. And so what happens is the faster you go, you throw the punch, and you're trying to pull it down and get it out of the way faster and faster so the next will come, and your force distribution is taken to the ground. And so if someone throws a hook while you're in the middle of trying to do that, there's this big, wide open gap waiting to tag you, and you can't jump up with a tonsile and break it, and block it. It's not going to happen. You're going to eat that punch. Yeah. So so what you have is you have a lot of beginners out there, people, and I'll put it to you this way, because I've seen it all the way up to the Sifu level. You have people who, whether through no fault of their own, and what I mean by that is they themselves may not have been fighters to begin with. Because I just know as a fighter, because I've always been a fighter, that you can't just give me anything. It's got to work. I got to understand how to do it, and then it's got to prove itself. It's got to be tested. It can't be some, static one-step sparring drill. It's got to be while we spar and you're not trying to let me do what I want to do. If I can pull it off then I know there might be something to it. You follow what I'm saying? It's got to be functional under pressure. So some of these guys, it's not their fault. It's maybe that's the way their teacher taught them. Maybe they're in a very commercial school where we're worried about insurance and we're worried about accidents, which are legitimate concerns, but that forces them to not test what they're doing, or they just don't have the mindset to train, that way. They like being able to do a one-step movement where the straight punch is coming and you're going to get off and do 50 fast techniques. They're garbage. That's not real fighting. And some of us get that. Like when my Sifu comes in, he does a seminar, right? And Alice is getting a bonus right here, me talking about all this. He got me started. now I'm on the rampage. I have a video that I want to get out because, there's a couple of toes I want to step on. And I'm not talking about people who are outside of my organization. I'm talking about some of my own Kung Fu brothers who are just hard-headed. So I'll use this platform to a level, a certain level. But getting back to what I was saying, it's in the way that you train it. I think some of these people are getting so used to and comfortable with how good they look, on this static training method. See, I see it for what it is. When Grandmaster comes in and he's showing us a move, it's not like he's going to dance around in the ring and we're going to spar him. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. You have to slow it down and stop and show the technique so you can get a clean idea of structure first. It's up to you after that point to take it to the next point, which is to test it but what happens is people see the demo and they think that's where the buck ends. And that's where you have all these knuckleheads, they see a technique and you see all these knuckleheads throwing these rolling punches, right? And they're throwing them at 100 miles an hour. Well, they don't realize that doesn't necessarily represent that at the end of the movement you were supposed to do specifically rolling punches. It's follow-up. It's multiple. It's an idea of pressure, of forward pressure, keeping the opponent on the defense by these rapid successive. So it could be a bunch of independent punches going, from a straight punch to a cross to an uppercut to a buffalo horn, as we call it, because we don't do hooks, right? We do, we step off to the side and do a buffalo horn. But because it's better for us. We're not exposed. So people see the demo. And then they go train the demo. I think there's a lot of people that are stuck in a seminar. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, all seminars are not created equal, because if you go to a grappling seminar, how do you work on the grappling technique? You get down and you grapple.
After this radio episode, I'll be accepting duels from everyone.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah, and and what I'm saying is, the point I guess I'm trying to get across, it has nothing to do with me or how great I am. All right, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is I've identified, what is it in 165 competitions, or point sparring, full contact, continuous contact, whatever it is, in the school, at a tournament, whatever it is. When I'm successful, right? What was it that made me successful? Was it that I was just more athletic? Because athleticism in an athletic competition plays a very important part, right? A lot of people see me now and they only know this big 275-pound frame. But the majority of my martial arts, I was 175 pounds, right? So, especially
like lesser weight.
Especially when I was competing. Right? I competed up into a big size at the U.S. Capitol Classics, right? But the guy I was fighting was like 6'5", right? 6'5", something, But anyways, and he was a world Gujaru champion, according to him. So anyways, and my thing is this. What I'm trying to say is I try to identify what is it that made me successful. So I'd get my film for whatever I had tape on, right? And that's why I always tell people, man, look, good, bad, or ugly, win or lose, record your fights, because you can learn so much from them. right? Don't be worried about that you had a bad showing and your ego is bruised and you lost or whatever. You need to know why. And it's one thing for people to speculate around you because everybody has a different vantage point to tell you. And there's it's another thing for you to actually see what happens yourself. So I would watch my footage. I would put it in slow motion. Sometimes I would watch it frame by frame, drive people in the room crazy. They're like, just let it run. I'm like, no. I want to see the precursor. What was it? You know, because when we're watching something on tape or on video, we tend not to pick up stuff. Like, you know the dude in Colorado, right? The guy that tried to get into my seminar.
Yeah.
You know, when your boys, Alex, I said your boys. I shouldn't have said that. I know these aren't your boys. when the one dude gets on and he goes, frankly, these two gentlemen were sloppy. Okay, thank you for calling me a gentleman. I appreciate that. But really, you know, you were trying to diss, right? So here's the diss, right? And, you know, and I can't stand people with false humility, right? You got one guy talking about, oh, my ego. I wouldn't let my ego. Look, man, I get it, right? I'm a grown man, right? I don't seek violence. I don't seek confrontation, right? Mm-hmm. But then there's another piece to this, right? And the other piece of it is this. This dude's talking about it was sloppy. I think maybe he was saying I look sloppy, you know, because of my weight. Yeah. But you can't, as any legitimate martial artist that watches that in slow motion, you see my spinal alignment, you see my weight distribution, you see the ability to use two hands simultaneous while going forward at a high speed, controlling my balance. Right? You saw my post on this, right, Alex?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah,
I saw that jerk, the way he was commenting about your skill and all that.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, no, I don't have a problem with comment. I don't have a problem with criticism. Everybody's a right to their opinion. I just happen to disagree with his opinion and, you know, what people tell on themselves, right? Because a person who has a lot of experience fighting, right? Yeah. And doesn't, you know, because, see, he has a different style. So the way he interacts with his customers, right, may be a little different than reality. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So he's a, and I don't mean that as a diss. I mean that if you're in your school, you know, one thing I don't ever do is use my students to rate my skill. When I spar and I train and do my own personal training, I'm with one of my peers or somebody higher. You know what I'm saying? I got to keep it 100. Yeah. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. So but I can see that if you're in the minutia of running a school and you're the leader of the school and everybody else is under you and you're demonstrating all the time, and of course those demonstrations are just demonstrations. Now, if you're in your school and you're sparring everybody all the time, that's a little better. But the truth is generally those guys are probably all less skilled than you. Yeah. I mean, maybe. You know, I've had people come to my school that were highly skilled people, and and I give them the respect when we spar, because you can't come into my school and we don't touch hands. I don't care if I'm 80 years old; we're gonna be touching hands sooner or later. Right? I'm not that teacher. I don't. Alex, I'm not that teacher. I don't just sit back and collect tuition. I gotta, in order for me to help, I've gotta feel what's going on. And I don't have a problem with people touching me. I'm not unhittable. I don't try to be untouchable. I try to be unstoppable. There's a big difference. Yeah. You know, anybody can pity pat you, but knock you out, that's what I don't want to be. I don't want to get knocked out. I don't want to get, you know, injured. I don't care if you get a punch in. You know, I don't care if you get a smack in. It's all part of training. You know, yeah. my first Wing Chun teacher, you couldn't punch at his face. If you punched at his face, it was disrespectful, and then he would go, you know, from 0 to 100 on you. When I'm training with my students, right? If as long as I'm not demonstrating, you know, if I'm demonstrating a technique, that's one thing. You know, you're supposed to be cooperative. But if we're sparring, because I'm sparring, which is how I was raised, right? That means you can go for what you want. Just remember, whatever you do, I also can do. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So if you lose your mind, you might get tagged, right? You know, and of course I can encourage that. We're one big family. We got to understand we're all trying to help each other. We're not trying to hurt each other. You save the venom for the enemy. You don't do that with family, right?
That's right.
But this training thing is such a big deal to me. Alex, it's like this is my mind. I mean, I'm sure maybe other people are doing this, or they don't need to do it because the type of system they train may be more apt to getting right into that and addressing that issue right away. So, for example, like boxing. You know, when I was a boxer, I was just a kid, right? Yeah. I was going into the rec center. I didn't know I was going into the rec center and Emmanuel Stewart and all those dudes were going to end up coming out of that place. To me, it was just it was the rec center. I was there to play ping pong, and okay, they got a gym in the basement. That's cool, right? You know, there's a big boxing ring. I'm just a little kid, right? So what do you learn first, right? You learn stance. You learn your guard. You learn the type of punches and the correct structure. You're looking in the mirror and you're shadow boxing. Shadow boxing for the boxer is just like the Kung Fu guy doing his forms. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
Right? Now, the difference, where it changes, is the shadow in boxing, we go from doing a very specific thing to really shadow boxing, which is complete imagination. You know, I'm just moving, and based on my weight distribution and me turning, I'm doing whatever happens off of, wherever I am in the moment, where a set pattern is a set pattern, right? And then the next thing that changes is that quicker after you learn your punches and boxing and your feet and your footwork, right? You get into that ring, right? You're hitting a bag. You're hitting resistance. You're working the focus mitts, and then you're working against another human being. And so dynamic training, what I call dynamic Wing Chun training, can be applied to any martial arts. It's just for those martial arts where they have gotten too static, where all they're doing is one-step drills, and then they skip from one-step drills straight to sparring. And then you wonder why you can't do half the stuff and half the techniques that you learn, and you end up just doing some type of kickboxing.
Yeah.
Now look, if you watch my early footage, Alex, you see me when the skinny Shannon, right? Skinny Sifu, little mountain, right?
Yeah.
When you see Little Hurricane, right? You see my movement. I'm all over the place, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing my Jeet Kune Do and my boxing footwork, and I'm trying to apply the Wing Chun. I haven't quite become Wing Chun yet, but I'm applying the principles, right? But my body mechanics are still from that, majority of my training, which was previous to Wing Chun. But now, I challenge anyone to say anything I ever do is not Wing Chun, right? People who don't understand Wing Chun will look at it and go, oh, wait a minute, that's not Wing Chun. Yes, it is. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not a fighter. You're watching static demo people showing demonstrations on YouTube. You got to watch a fighter.
That's right.
And the Wing Chun people that don't do well in MMA and don't do well in athletic competitions, the ones that don't, are usually the ones that are trying to do that static stuff, a self-defense technique that is for the street, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to do it in the ring. Well, why can't you do those? It's not that those techniques are bad and that they don't work. It's just we're talking about two different dynamics. When I train for self-defense, it's survival mode. It's not boxing mode.
Right.
If someone jumps me on the street, and trust me, I've been jumped on the street. People try to carjack me.
Oof.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I'm on the street, I'm not thinking, let me put up my hands and get into a position, a pose, and then start dancing around, thumbing my nose. I'm thinking gouge your eyes out and crush your windpipe immediately.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying? I'm not thinking about if I feel my life is threatened. I'm not thinking about, do I got my center line covered? I shouldn't be thinking about that. It should be happening naturally, right? Uh-huh. But when you're in the ring, it's different. You're competing against someone who is also training, it's not an off-the-cuff mugging or something like you would find on the street. So it's not the same thing. There are rules. You can't attack the eyes. You can't attack the throat. You can't attack the groin. So now you have to say you got gloves on your hands, right? So it can take away from from bones hitting your jaw, from a pad hitting your jaw. So you have to make sure that now the way you're addressing your Wing Chun or whatever style it is, that it's appropriate for that environment. So if that environment is a constantly changing environment because your opponent this is an athletic competition, so he's not going to stand there and let you hit you. I mean, you can tell some people just bum rush another person, right? And those usually are the beginners.
Yeah.
I mean, the beginners usually go out with all their power and all their speed straight off the bat. I mean, it's not that, that there's not opportunities sometimes off the bat to just blast someone, but an experienced tenured fighter is not going to start off at 100 miles an hour. He's going to start off with a little bit of distance. He's going to be talking, having a conversation. He's going to Bernard Hopkins your butt. You know what I'm saying? Right? I argue with people all the time. Watch Bernard Hopkins fights. Right? This is a master boxer. Right? Because even with Leroy Taylor, or was it Leroy Taylor that he lost to twice?
Yeah.
Because he just waited too long to Jermaine Taylor. Because he waited too long to pull the trigger. But if you watch the pattern of the majority of Bernard Hopkins fights, what you do is you see this master boxer spend the first, second, third, fourth, sometimes all the way to the fifth round, understanding who his opponent really is. He's doing just enough to make it, he'll score points where he can, but he's more concerned with trying to figure out what's your real motives, what's your real reflexes, what's your real patterns. Because, how do you know that? Because once he figures it out, all of a sudden the whole fight flips. And it's like, and that's how you know a master boxer. This is why I always have this argument with people who hate on Floyd. Right. I'm like, I see the Wing Chun, right? But I'm a little biased, right? But I see a fighter who is adapting in the fight, right? Some people can't do that. Some people just fight the way they fight, and if they can't adapt. They either got to have such a contrast in style that their style is a better fit against one, is made for that style, or they have to be completely more athletic, like super powerful, one punch knockout. Right. But the skillful boxers, right? Mm-hmm. Skillful boxers, once they figure it out, the whole thing turns around. Right. So everybody's talking about Mayorga. Remember when Mayorga was fighting Mayweather, Alex?
Yeah.
So everybody's making a big hoopla in that first fight, just because they weren't used to seeing Mayweather having so much pressure put on him at one time.
Right.
Most of that stuff was missing. If you watch it in slow motion, like I tend to do, because I just have patience like that. I want to analyze everything. I see a person rolling. I see the shoulder rolls. I see punches going off her elbows. I see a couple connecting here and there, but even they are not clean strikes, right? Yeah. And then I see Floyd adapting, and just, taking him to school. And how do you know he's a master boxer? Because not only did he adapt in the first fight and then win it, but then the second fight was like taking someone to school. What happened to Mayorga? He had a whole fight to say, oh, this is what Floyd does, but he couldn't. Nope. He fought that same garbage fight he fought the first time, right? Yep. And Mayweather just ran circles around him. So this dynamic Wing Chun training thing you start from static and then you go to a dynamic thing. It's before sparring, because sparring should be random. You follow? Spontaneous, random. Mm-hmm. But there is a way that you can develop skill and movement by having, drills and stuff that are where you're doing those techniques and movements and you get a certain amount of resistance within the movement, but not the full thing. If you just go right from static, where it's almost completely in a cooperative situation, and you're just taking like one step off the line, versus circling each other and changing directions, and the guy punching when he feels like punching versus when you're ready for the punch. You understand what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
When you do a demo, you know, there's an understanding. You throw the punch, I'm ready for the punch. But when we're sparring, we're full on sparring, you know, you got an agenda and I got an agenda.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
When we're doing static training, there's only one agenda. And so that's what that's kind of a little quick overview of what dynamic Wing Chun training is. It's not a new Wing Chun, no. Doesn't matter what kind of Wing Chun you do. I just happen to do traditional Wing Chun. So, you know, that's my core, so that's fine. But it could be Hung Gar, it could be boxing, it could be anything. Well, it doesn't have to be boxing because boxing already is dynamic. Do you understand what I'm saying, Alex?
Yeah, I understand.
So when you see me and you give me probably the greatest compliment someone like me could get, which is, you remind me of Ali and Yip Man. Yes, I know that you're not telling me I have the skill of Yip Man or the skill of Ali or that I'm those people. You're saying, look, the essence of, you know, doing Wing Chun with fluidity and movement, and that's what you're bringing together. And that is exactly it. That is what I've been trying to be. That's how I've always been. Even before Wing Chun, I've always wanted to be fluid. You know, because what did Bruce say? Be like water, right? You pour it into a cup and it becomes the cup, right? So, you know, I remember when I saw that interview, I lost my mind. You know, that black and white interview, they're talking to the old dude, and the dude was like, and Bruce is so damn cool.
Yeah, he was.
Where did Bruce get the swagger?
Yeah.
Right? He didn't get that swagger.
He learned it
get
from
that swagger. Yeah, man, because he didn't get that swagger in China. Don't even try it. Right? Jet Li doesn't have that kind of swagger.
No, he don't.
Right?
That was completely
I love them
American, man.
Yeah, and we all know who Bruce Lee's idol was.
Yep.
Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
Right? So, and Bruce is a cha-cha champion, so we know he has a rhythm because he could dance, right?
Uh-huh.
When he got to the United States, I'm sure it all came together. So anyways, you got a little Latino flavor in there, you got a little, you know, so I'm sure Jesse had to show him a couple moves. But we can talk to Jesus Santiago about that one, right?
Yeah, we do.
I know he would agree with me. But the thing is, you know, that rhythm and flow and all that kind of stuff like that, you know, it's dynamic. You know, I know when Bruce Lee got into that fight, you know, the only fight we know about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, we got to put things in perspective. You know, when Bruce Lee was doing Wing Chun, he was a kid.
Uh-huh.
He was a kid. We can't speculate. See, we love Bruce Lee. We know Bruce Lee post-Bruce Lee. You know, we know Bruce Lee when he was a man and he had figured it out and he was doing all these dynamic approaches to martial arts. He was way ahead of his time. But if we, you know, but when he was training Wing Chun, what time did he start Wing Chun? Him and Grandmaster, they were 10, 11, 12?
Well, Grandmaster was 10. Bruce Lee was 13.
Okay, so Bruce Lee started his Wing Chun at 13. He trained till he was maybe 17 or 18 before he came to the United States?
Yeah.
Right? So what are we talking about? We're talking about, you said 13, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking to one of my students who calls himself a Bruce Lee, scientist or something, right? You know, and I consider myself to be well informed, right? So, but anyway, so I mean, think about it, Alex.
Uh-huh.
Think about when you were 13 years old, right?
Uh-huh.
Come on. I don't care how special a kid you are. The vantage point of a 13-year-old doing Wing Chun, and the vantage of a person who, you know, in their 20s or 30s, who've been doing it all that time. Those are two different vantage points. You know what I'm saying? So we all got to remember that when we think of Bruce Lee. You know, people talk about, Bruce Lee left Wing Chun because it was too rigid and, you know, it was too many fixed patterns. And when I hear that, I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? See, this is where I get into my dynamic training. Because, you know, if it was rigid and too many fixed patterns, then he still is in the beginning levels. Do you understand? Right? He's still in the beginning levels. And what do I mean by beginning levels? What I mean is that There is no Wing Chun that I know, whether the traditional Wing Chun, Ip Man Wing Chun, Hokkien Ming Wing Chun, whatever it is. When you mature, and you are, if you're a fighter, then you understand that fighting is fluid, that it constantly changes, that there is no set pattern. So when we first start, we do a set pattern to train our nervous system to have certain shapes, right?
Yeah.
But once you got those shapes in your system, you should not be doing any more fixed patterns. So it's my position that, because even from Bruce Lee's own mouth, he said, he learned Silam Tao, Chum Kill, a little bit, couple moves from the Bill G, and a couple moves on the wooden dummy. And then he tried to go back to China, later and have Yip Man allow him to film the rest of the wooden dummy form that he obviously didn't have, right? So he could teach that to the Americans, right? And of course, Yip was very, I don't really want you sharing this with the world. But it's more to it than that. If all you needed to do was memorize our three forms, learn the wooden dummy form, and do the weapon sets, and that's all there was to Wing Chun, everybody would be able to do it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Of course, it's way deeper than that, right? Yeah. And that's what comes out in your training, right? I know I have peers that they know all the forms, they've done all the stuff, but they can't do it. Do you understand what I'm saying? They can only do it if it's non-combative. They can only do it in the air. They can only do it in a controlled demonstration. I can do my Wing Chun, every aspect of it. The wooden dummy aspect, the chi sao aspect, because I understand what I'm doing. And I hate to say that they don't understand what they're doing. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they haven't taken it to that level. They haven't broken down, analyzed, say, am I fighting a piece of wood, or is there something else going on here? Am I developing attributes that transfer into actual combat? Yeah. See, if I get fixated on the form, then I'm not thinking about combat. People say, okay, here's the technique, here's the application. But you don't know what someone's going to do in real life fighting, or when you spar, or we have ideas, straight, round, force, front kick, back kick, hook, uppercut, cross. We have ideas, and we come up with certain techniques to do it, but people change what they do in the moment. You see? So you have to have the ability to flow from one technique to the other. You have to have the ability to be able to feel energy, sense energy, read energy. You have the ability to, when you can't do all of that, limit your opponent's options. That's Wing Chun. That's what Wing Chun is, right? It's the ability, when I'm mixing it up with somebody, right? Because I'm not trying to have a firefight with somebody who is my size or greater. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So but sometimes you get caught in an exchange, right?
Uh-huh.
Am I right or wrong?
That's true.
Right? You get caught in an exchange and you're both going at it.
Uh-huh.
So instead of, if you know you're the stronger person, maybe you'll stay there and go at it. But the smaller person, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, right?
Yeah.
As soon as Marvin starts to, try to impose his will, where is Sugar? Gone, right?
Yep.
It's the same way in Wing Chun. He can't do a fixated movement. He has to flow in and out of technique, flow in and out of ranges, flow in and out of energy. And they can't all be separate. It's all one thing. It's like that gentleman in Colorado, right? He's a good guy. He had a question, but he wasn't satisfied with the answer. And it was like, well, they're not really doing it for real. I'm speculating on what was his thought process to literally step up in the middle of my presentation.
Yeah.
After I spent 30 minutes going off topic just to answer his question.
Uh-huh.
with a world karate champion next to me, or a former karate champion. And so he's doing jump spin and back kicks and all this stuff, and I'm showing him how we close the gap, how we deal it from the outside. But then the guy says, but that's from a distance. You have to get in close to use your Wing Chun. And so I guess what he was assuming was that Wing Chun was Chi Sao.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a Chi Sao seminar. It wasn't supposed to be dealing with how you go from the outside to inside. If he had registered for the seminar and was supposed to be there, maybe that would have been clear to him. But he busted in, okay?
He got hurt for it.
And so, yeah, and I entertained his idea, but what he didn't realize is that, it's a principle-based art. So center line doesn't have any meaning outside of 3 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Chi Sao doesn't have any meaning if I'm not making contact.
Right.
So if that's all that was in Wing Chun, we'd be lost, right?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sorry, how many fights, right? Like, if I outclass you, maybe I can stay on the outside and round kick you in your head and knock you out. you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying, I mean, people do that. You watch kickboxing, that happens, but how does it happen? It happens when the opponent rushes in and he gets caught with that kick.
Yep.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I stay on the outside, and then I try to bait you in. I do some draws. You take that step, and I lay that round kick right in your head and knock you out. The fourth multiplier is you coming in and my kick going out. So, what I was trying to explain to him is that it doesn't matter. I can be, 4 or 5 feet away from you, and if you're just trying to kick from the outside, I'm going to check your kick. I'm going to attack your kick. The other guy was kicking. I just kicked him in the leg, right? He tried to do a roundhouse kick to my head, and I kicked and hit his kneecap, right? That was my plan. It was either that or the groin, and I don't want to do that. He's not my enemy, right? So I kicked his leg, and that immediately made his leg come down, and then I immediately closed the gap, trapped his arm, and then started, exchanging on him. This dude, he tries to hit me with a movement that you do in a self-defense technique. He tries to break my kneecap. You saw it?
Yeah.
Did you see the video?
Yeah, I love
Now,
that video.
did I not say, I don't mind the question. I don't mind the disagreement. We can all agree to disagree. I don't mind that. But the video picks up after I had spent 30 minutes demonstrating just for this one guy when everybody else had already got it and we were supposed to move forward. But he decided to draw himself out. And I don't know how many times I said, I tried to move away from it. But then finally I just said, okay, all right. He said, well, I go, do you get it now? And he was like, well, you have to. And I said, okay, bullshit, right? you basically, you're not feeling it, right? But no, my point is I don't mind. I don't care if he doesn't get it. It's that he keeps interrupting every time we're doing something and bringing it back to that point. So I said, okay, what do you want me to do? If you listen to the audio, I tell him, hey, my Wing Chun starts here. It starts from wherever I am. And he's like, no, from the outside, you can't, you can only do the Wing Chun on the inside. And I go, no, it's not true. And so after my demonstration, he comes in and I ask him, I'm giving him plenty of opportunity, right? I go, what do you want me to do? Did I not do that, Alex?
Yeah.
Did he not say, if you listen to the tape, did he not say to me, well, show me how you come in?
In the video, it
That's
seems like
exactly what he said.
in the video, it seems like you were trying to get through to him, and he just didn't listen.
Yeah, but did you hear if you listen to the audio, the guy says, I ask him, okay, what do you want me to do? Because he decides that he wants to be part of the demonstration, right? He says, I ask him, okay, what do you want me to do? And he says, well, try it on me, right? And so, no, he didn't say try it on me. He said, show me what you do. Show me how you come in.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. That's how we do it in Wing Chun. We don't go back and forth, bob and weave, bounce up and down like a point sparring kick, Taekwondo tournament or something. You follow what I'm saying? You want to know how I come in. This is how I come in. I trap your elbow and I punch you in the jaw. What the heck are you thinking? Right? I'm not going to give you the opportunity to get into your stance and to, get your flexibility and warm up and get your cardio up a little bit and then, start reeling kicks at me. My job is to stop your legs from getting up. Right? So you thought you were going to throw a short kick and break my kneecap. But the problem is you're sideways. So you have limited weapons to use. Yep. Because I operate on center line principle and central line principle. Thank you, Grandmaster William Chung. Right? I have the ability to use both my weapons, or all my weapons are facing right at you. So I can pull my elbow, my knee, my punch, whatever I'm going to do, I'm ready to fire. I'm ready to pull the trigger right at you. You have got to get into position. And if you want to use your power weapons, which would be your rear hand and your rear leg, you've got to turn and cross your center of gravity right in front of me. All I got to do is go forward. And so I have less, I'm going to spend less time. I'm going to be more direct. So he tries to do the side kick. If you watch, you see me following Grandmaster William Chung's principle of trapping that lead elbow, right? Tai jung, tai set. Control the elbows and the knees. And this is a random situation, Alex. This is somebody who doesn't want to do what I want him to do. This is a contentious opponent who had an agenda, right? So he tries to kick. You see my left hand go right to his elbow, and I'm pushing down on his elbow because that forces his leg to the ground. He had a choice. He could try to be Superman and really shoot out a really hard low side kick. Or, because as soon as I touch that and I'm putting pressure on his elbow, which makes it hard for him to do the kick, I also have my fist already, 3-4 inches away from his face? Uh-huh. It wasn't drawn back from my chin or from my hip or from way back. It was out front. That's Wing Chun principle. And so I did, like an inch punch or a 3-inch punch, right? And I said, wow. So he had to make a decision. Do I take that punch to my processor where all my decisions are made? Or do I try to force the kick in? Well, he decided he needed to protect his dome. So the kick doesn't work. He loses his balance. I'm using forward pressure in the way we do in Wing Chun, which is, kind of like a sticking pressure. You understand what I mean, Alex? It's like a sticking pressure, which means I don't want to give you too much space for you to interrupt my technique as I try to come in. Yeah. Right? Now it's not that way all the time, right? Yeah. So I go forward, I trap the elbow, I'm applying forward pressure, and because I have all my weapons facing him, I can throw 4 or 5 punches to every one of his. Right? In the same amount of time. Just look at it. Don't take my word for it, but understand what you're looking at. Yep. Right? Yep. It wasn't the fat man just bum rushing a skinny dude. The dude was 6'1", 6'2". He was taller.
That skinny.
He was very bold to come into a tournament. I don't know who he is. I have no backup. I don't know what's going on. I hope that everyone behaves themselves, but I have to be careful. And at the same time, I don't want to have conflict within my seminar. I want everyone to have a good time, and so they learn. I don't want them to be focused on that. Right. So if you ask me, that was a very controlled scenario because I could have done way more than that. Yeah. But I didn't do that. I took him over to the side when he was on the mats and in the mirrors. I stopped, right? I said, any more questions? That's your chance number 2 to figure out another way to do this. But what does he say? Let's try that again.
I remember that.
So look, if I just demonstrated on to you, okay, I said, okay, maybe he thinks, I caught him off guard. I'm sorry. You're the one that initiated this. You were ready. You walked up. I even said, what do you want me to do? You told me what you want to do, and so I showed you. Now, I can't help it if my lines are more direct than yours. which is what is really what we're talking about. We're talking about a contrast of mechanics. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. It's not that Okinawa and Ishinryu is bad. I did Okinawa and Shuru. I trained under Sensei Don Batenga. I have respect. That's my family. Wow. Right? So, it's not Wing Chun versus karate. I mean, karate is a big name, and there's a lot of different types of karate, right? And quiet as it's kept, karate comes from Chinese Kung Fu. It comes from White Crane, so don't even try to front, right? So we are in the same family whether you like it or not. Now, just because the Japanese and the Chinese culturally might separate themselves, bottom line is the art is rooted in the same family.
All martial artists, we're all family, man.
Yeah, so I don't even know this stuff until after the fact. I don't know what this guy does. I just know this guy turned sideways.
You certainly surprised him,
Yeah, and so on the next piece, maybe he thought that, I said, okay, I'll give you space. I actually back up, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because I'm backing up, and every time I see this on tape, I'm backing up, and my shoe gets caught on the carpet as I'm pulling my pants over my surplus of energy. I have a surplus of energy. So for all you haters out there who are skinny, right, you have an energy deficit. I have an energy surplus. No, but seriously, I stepped back and I gave this guy space. This is what he wanted. He wanted to be able to do a double fake. He wanted to go low round kick, high round kick. Hey, come on. I show respect. I go to somebody's seminar. I don't test. I'm not there to test myself. That's what he was doing, because no one challenges me. I don't go out and do challenges. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Because I believe in what I do, right? Yeah. If you're feeling insecure about what you do and the style you do, you feel the need to go out and challenge other people. But when you challenge other people, what you're really saying is you're trying to test yourself. You want to see how well you do against them. So he wanted to see how well he does against me, because I already know how good I am.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm just like anybody else. Another situation, I might have got my tail whipped.
Right.
Right? But I believe in what I do. I train it. I'm not going to...
and all that stuff is maliciousness, because they see that you're a bigger guy, and they think that you're not that good because of your size.
And see, a master knows better than to judge something by the book by its cover.
Exactly.
You follow what I'm saying? Uh-huh. Now, look, I'm not the one. I'm not going to tell you, look, I'm constantly in the gym working on nutrition, working on health. Of course, I want to live a long time, right? So I'm not telling anybody out there that they should get to my weight, right, on purpose. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. We all have our struggles, and we all have different metabolisms and all that garbage, and we can all say this, and if you were just doing this, and you don't know what you're talking about unless you know the individual, right? Mm-hmm. So my thing is I've been training martial arts since I was 13. 10, I started. 13, I got serious, right? So, and I never stopped. So, I don't know what you're talking about. Now, I had to juggle jobs and wives and kids and stuff like that. That's another thing. But, so this guy, he has the space, right? Mm-hmm. And you see how low my guard was, Alex?
Yeah.
I put it in the middle to split the top level and the bottom level. That's not what we do, right? Uh-huh. I put it in the middle. That's a draw. I even took my fingers and did the Bruce Lee thing. Come on, right? If he was what I would call a more mature black belt, if we're going to use black belt, which doesn't mean anything, but if we're going to use black belt, there's so many people who have black belts in 2 years, right? It's so garbage. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hey, look, when I got my Taekwondo belt, I did it. I was just a kid. It's not. How can I count I have a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. I can't count that second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. I was a kid.
Wow.
I'm a grown man, man. That was when I was a kid, you know? You ever heard of junior black belt?
Yeah.
Right? So, we got to put things in perspective, right? So, I am what I am now, and that's accumulation of the amount of time I put in, right? So, in my mind, I would have never gone into anybody's seminar and injected myself in that fashion. I would have definitely asked a question if I didn't understand something, or if I disagreed with it, I would say, yeah, you know what, but I don't see how, blah, blah, blah. And then even still, if the guy demonstrates and it's still not to my satisfaction, I'm not going to step up unless he brings me up, right? I'm going to just agree to disagree. I'm going to say, okay, you absorb what's useful, you reject what's not, right? But you got to make a due diligence to try to really understand something. If you made that due diligence and you still don't understand it, there's no problem. It's fine, right? This guy wanted to get a little deeper. So he gets a second chance. He comes at me. He does a double kick. And if you listen to me, Alex, I'm Bobby Fischer. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know who Bobby Fischer is, right?
No.
Bobby Fischer is the world chess champion. The dude that went crazy.
I don't play
right?
chess.
Well, you need to play chess.
Yeah, I do.
Right? Chess is fighting. Right? You always got to be 3 moves ahead, right? Which to some people seems like impossible, but it's not.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, and if you listen to me, when you hear me, what did I say? I said, there it is, right? I saw the end. I realized what I was dealing with.
Yeah.
Right? I could have been nasty. I could have been unprofessional, but I wasn't. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you have part of that in color and part of it in slow motion and in black and white. So there's no distraction. It's not about the karate guy and the Wing Chun guy. It's not about this guy who decided to break into, my thing, and he hadn't paid and he wasn't part of the seminar. It's about mechanics. It's an expression of mechanics. And it's beautiful because it was real. It was fluid. It wasn't a demo. I don't know that guy. Do you understand?
Yeah.
He had an agenda. He was going to prove to me that I couldn't do what I said I was going to do, said I was doing. You see?
Yeah.
And I didn't have to use all my weight. If that's what y'all think, if that's what people think is me using my weight, you haven't seen me go at it. Right? When I do Wing Chun, my Wing Chun says, why am I wasting energy? I'm only going to give what you need to get. So he does his thing. I'm doing the most basic Wing Chun, right? Silam Tao form, Tong Sao, Gum Sao, right? Chun Sao, Bilji. Then, if you watch, Alex, you probably didn't realize this, but at the end, before I hit him with that one last time, he was facing me. Remember, all the other times he was in that side stance.
Yep.
But during that little exchange, just before the very end, he's facing me. So what you see me do is you literally see me turn this man sideways. So I could be on the blind side, trap his arm, and then throw that punch. Right? And it was a flash knock. Eyes rolled in the head. But here's the good thing about it. The good thing about it was after that, he got it. Right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a pride or ego thing, right? This is what he wanted. And so I gave it to him. Oh yeah. I mean, we're not sending each other Christmas cards, but what I'm saying is that, yeah, after that I said, look, man, no hard feelings, right? He was like, no. He said, I get it now. He said, I was looking at it a whole different way. And I said, I understand completely. And he ended up paying. He was just, a spectator who just came in. He wasn't someone in it. And there was no spectators. You're not supposed to be watching. You're either in the seminar or you're not. Right? I'm not giving away a free seminar, right? So I'll pay for my pay ticket there. So anyways, he is, he does it. We go to dinner, it was okay with him to put that up. You see, I didn't put his name. I didn't do anything specific. I wasn't even me. It was my student. But the point being is this: is that I thought it was a great contrast. You know, that thing was 1,100,000 views in 4 months, right? Because people thought, you know, it was, you know, and people, it just amazed me how many people focused on my weight. They couldn't get around the weight. I said, you know, why would you focus on my weight? Watch the technique, right? I think the disconnect comes in is because you do things a different way. So you're expecting, I don't know, whatever you're expecting, whatever style you do, or what you consider to be something. But if you are an expert, right? And I would say ask an expert, somebody who has experience, not someone who, I'm talking about a fighter. Yeah. Right? I'm not talking about someone who you know, plays around. I'm talking about someone who has some tenure. And say, watch it in slow motion and watch this big guy, the way he moves that weight. Because you don't understand, right? If you're big and sloppy and you don't have training, all the guy has to do is be the matador. Right. Am I right or wrong?
Exactly, yep.
I mean, having extra weight means I have to have even more control over my weight distribution.
That's right, yep.
Because if I throw a punch with all my power at 100 miles an hour, and I don't have good stance structure and good control over my force and my weight, all you got to do is pull that thing out at the last minute, and I'm going through the wall. So what you did see, our friends out there who want to hate, right, is you saw a masterful demonstration and contrast in the planning. You know, if I worried about every person that is fixating on my weight, you know, I'd be arguing and doing it all the day. I'm just saying, you know, look, I agree. Everybody needs to be as healthy.
I agree with a lot of what you say anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we all have to, you know, we all want to be healthy, and I want to be healthy. I'm probably your more healthy functional because I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have high cholesterol. I go to the doctors and he's like, dude, right? But I'm 50 now. So he's like, look, you know, you're blessed. You know, whatever you do, your kung fu, the workouts that you do, you're not like every big guy that's out there. You know, you get, it's like an NFL lineman, right?
Yeah.
You know, you got some nasty NFL linemen, and then you got some just big guys, right? Mm-hmm. The bottom line is it will work against you over time, and I realize that. You know, it's just too much weight on your heart as you get older. So it's obviously in our best interest to be in the best possible shape that we can be, and I'm all for that. So I don't disagree with people when it comes to, hey, you're a martial artist. I realize that when they look at me now, they may not be seeing the calling card that they're expecting.
But with your skill and experience, it is certainly an advantage.
Yeah, and the thing is, you know, the truth be told, is before I had the weight, I was still Ali. Do you understand what I'm saying?
At what point did you become Yip Man?
Right. Do you understand what I mean? I was more Ali than Yip Man because I knew I could just dance in and out all over the place. So, you know, what happened is when I got married and I had kids and couldn't get to the health club in the same patterns and, you know, whatever. But the point being is that I had to start saying, okay, you know, I can't run 10 miles, so I need to figure out how to be more direct, how to be able to pace myself, how to be able to control the way I move so I don't waste energy because, here's the thing. I can huff and puff, but I can still fight you 12 rounds. You see what I'm saying? I might be huffing and puffing, but you ain't going to see me quit until you're either knocked out, I'm knocked out, or it's the 12th round bell, right? You see what I'm saying? So don't let it fool you, right?